Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, as part of my build series where I build up my specialized LA Sprint, today we are tackling the job of installing the carbon seat post. We're going to install the saddle as well as both front and rear derailleurs. Now, as far as the saddle I'm going to be installing here, I have a Bontrager Aeolus short nose saddle. Now, I know it's a little bit of taboo to be mixing brands, but I don't really care. I already own this saddle and I didn't feel like buying a brand new specialized one. For the front mech, we have a Ultegra R8000. And for the rear derailleur, I'm actually using a Shimano 105 R7000 medium cage derailleur. Reason being is because one, the 105 is much cheaper than the Ultegra version. Two, the weight penalty is pretty insignificant. It's only about 30 grams. And number three is I want to future-proof my bike. That way, if I decide to put on a cassette in the back larger than the 30 tooth, I'll be able to do so without having to swap out the standard size rear derailleur. The tools we'll be using today, we'll be using a 4mm Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, of course a torque wrench, some grease, and a little bit of carbon paste for the seat post. So let's get started. Alrighty, so starting with the rear derailleur, let's go ahead and get this bolted down. And we are using a 5mm Allen key. Like I said before, using the 105 is just a cheaper option, and because it's a medium cage derailleur, I'll be able to put on a wider set of cassettes without having to swap out the standard sized derailleur. And the recommended torque for Shimano for this derailleur is between 8 to 10 Newton meters. So I have mine set to 9 Newton meters. Let's go ahead and get this torque down. Alrighty, done and done. Let's continue. Alrighty, moving on to the front derailleur, we are using an Ultegra R8000 model. First thing we do is we'll get this bolted in here, and this is the braze-on version, and the hex wrench we're using is a 5mm. For right now, we're just sort of staging it. We'll work on adjusting the derailleur for the front crank as needed, but for right now, we're just kind of getting it installed. And the recommended torque for the front derailleur, according to Shimano, is between 5 to 7 Newton meters. So once we get the crank and everything set up properly, we'll go ahead and get that torque down in another video. One more thing before we continue, this might be kind of hard to get on camera, but when we're setting up our front derailleur, we want to make sure that the derailleur is in line with the crank itself. That way, when we go to install our cables and set up our shifting, we'll be able to do so without any rub from either the crank or the chain. Next up is our carbon seat post. Now, I already took the measurements. You probably can't see this Sharpie line here, but I already took the measurements as far as saddle height from my current bike, which was my Yo-Yo custom build. So all we have to do is apply a little bit of carbon paste to allow the carbon seat post to grip to the frame. We'll torque it down using an Allen key as well as an actual torque wrench. The recommended torque specification is 6 Newton meters, but I usually torque mine down only to about 4 Newton meters, because when you're using the carbon gripping paste, that usually is enough torque to prevent the seat post from slipping downward. And what's nice with Specialized is they provide these guideline markers so that you can adjust the saddle height without having to tape up and mark up the seat posts like what I did here. We'll add some on the inside as well. And the good thing with the length of this carbon seat post is I didn't have to cut it down to size in order for it to fit in the frame. It was already short enough, so that wasn't an issue. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy into the frame. And there, like so. Using our 4mm Allen key, apply torque equally to both sides. And now we will torque this down to about 4 Newton meters. And you have to be really careful dealing with carbon components because we don't want the clamp to crush the carbon, because that would be no good. Alrighty, and we are done. Let's continue. Alrighty, so with our seat post installed, we can finally go ahead and install our saddle. So we've already added a little bit of gripping paste for the seat rail clamp here. we will be using a 5mm Allen key to loosen up this bolt. We'll get this attached, and once we're finished, we will get it torqued down. Now the recommended torque is about 13 Newton meters, but I'm going to torque mine down to about 11 Newton meters. Got the 5mm loosened up. Get that tightened down. And a quick side note, for setting up your saddle as far as angle goes and as far as distance from the handlebars, I will be taking the measurements on my current bike. Now, as far as the angle itself, what I like to do is I like to have the bike on a level surface, and then I'll put either like a ruler or a super flat book, and I will use my phone or a spirit level in order to get the angle. And I typically like to have my saddles tilted down about 2 to 3 degrees. And I'm actually not gonna torque this down all the way because I'll have to put the bike on a trainer in order to officially and properly set up the saddle and the angle. So that about does it for this video, guys. As always, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. And I will check you guys on the next build video. Thanks for watching. Peace.